The alien warrior women of the Xareeth Dominion prided themselves on their dominance. For millennia, they had crushed every civilization they deemed inferior, proving their physical and intellectual superiority across the stars. Their society revered strength, discipline, and order above all else, and they saw Earth as little more than a speck of dust in the galaxy, a backwater planet inhabited by a soft, sentimental species unworthy of conquest. When the Empress summoned her council to discuss Earth, the room echoed with disdainful laughter. The humans, with their primitive technologies and chaotic societies, had somehow managed to broadcast their signals into space. The Xareeth had intercepted Earth's media, images of feeble men, melodramatic love stories, and bizarre rituals that revolved around food and family. They celebrate weakness, one warrior sneered. Their males are frail, their emotions uncontrolled. The Empress, draped in ceremonial armor that glinted under the harsh light, raised a hand to silence the room. "Enough," she said, her voice commanding yet tinged with amusement. "Let us not waste time debating their flaws. Instead, we shall observe them. Let this be a lesson to remind us why we are superior." The decision was unanimous. A small scouting team would travel to Earth, not for conquest, but for entertainment. The warriors chosen for the mission were among the Dominion's finest, strong, ruthless, and deeply loyal to the Xareeth ideals. Their goal was simple: study the humans, report their weaknesses, and return with stories to bolster their empire's pride. As the team prepared for their journey, they couldn't help but mock the images they'd seen. They laughed at Earth's reliance on unrefined technologies, their sprawling cities lacking symmetry and efficiency, and, most of all, the apparent frailty of Earth's men. In Xareeth culture, men were subservient, valued only for their utility in reproduction and domestic tasks. The idea of a society where men were equals or even leaders was laughable. Before departing, the warriors reviewed Earth's customs with detached curiosity. They found the humans' attachment to concepts like love, family, and art perplexing. How can a species survive when it is so distracted by trivialities? One warrior mused. Another scoffed. Survive? They thrive in their chaos. But it will be their downfall. The Empress watched her warriors board their sleek, black spacecraft with a faint smile. "Let them see the truth for themselves," she murmured. "Earth will be a lesson in mediocrity." As the ship launched into the void, the warriors joked among themselves about what awaited them. They envisioned a planet teeming with fragile beings scurrying about their insignificant lives, unaware of the greatness that loomed above them. Yet beneath their arrogance lay an unspoken curiosity. These humans, despite their apparent weaknesses, had achieved spaceflight and transmitted signals across light years. They were a paradox, weak yet persistent, chaotic yet enduring. The warriors dismissed the thought as they approached Earth's orbit. Soon, they would confirm what they already knew: humans were nothing more than a passing anomaly in the grand tapestry of the universe. The alien warriors landed under the cover of darkness, their ship cloaked in technology far beyond human comprehension. They chose a remote location, a dense forest that bordered a small human settlement. This place, quiet and isolated, was perfect for observing Earth without interference. As they disembarked, their imposing forms moved silently through the undergrowth, scanning their surroundings with practiced precision. From a ridge overlooking the settlement, they observed the humans. The warriors noted how they lived: simple structures, rudimentary machines, and an apparent obsession with communal gatherings. "Pathetic," one of them muttered, watching as a group of villagers laughed and shared stories around a fire. "Their lives are dictated by emotion. Where is the discipline?" As the team moved closer, blending into the shadows, their eyes fell on a man working alone at the edge of the village. He was tall for a human, his frame lean but muscular, with a weathered face that spoke of years spent under the sun. He was repairing an old tractor, his hands deftly maneuvering tools as he hummed a tune. The sight of him was met with derision. "This is their male," one warrior sneered. Thin and fragile, like a sapling, yet they observed him further. When a child approached, clutching a broken toy and looking distraught, The man set aside his work and knelt down. With a reassuring smile, he took the toy and began fixing it with the same care he had given the machine. The child beamed, and the man ruffled their hair before sending them off with the repaired item. The warriors were perplexed. "Why waste time on trivialities?" one asked, her tone laced with irritation. "Their efficiency is appalling." But there was a flicker of something else beneath the surface of their scorn, an unfamiliar feeling they couldn't quite place. They followed him throughout the day, witnessing more of his routine. The man moved through his tasks with a quiet determination. He carried heavy loads without complaint, helped an elderly neighbor without being asked, and solved problems with a resourcefulness that intrigued them despite themselves. When a small fire broke out in the village, he was among the first to act, organizing a bucket line and extinguishing the flames before they could spread. By evening, the warriors regrouped, sharing their observations. One of them, who had been particularly vocal about human weakness, seemed unusually quiet. "He is different," she admitted reluctantly. "He lacks our strength, but there is something persistent about him." The others dismissed her unease. "Persistence is irrelevant without power," another said. "Let us test him. If he cannot stand against us, his resilience means nothing." The decision was made. They would confront the human, not just to test his mettle but to prove, once and for all, that the Xareeth were superior. As they moved toward the village under the cover of night, they could not help but feel a strange anticipation. This man, insignificant as he was, had sparked something in them, a curiosity they could not ignore. The man stood at the edge of the clearing, unaware of the figures emerging from the shadows. When they stepped into the dim moonlight, their towering forms revealed armor that shimmered like black glass and faces etched with sharp, alien beauty. He froze, instinctively stepping back, but his expression betrayed no fear. One of the warriors stepped forward, her gaze piercing. "You are the male of this place?" she asked, her voice cold and authoritative. He looked at her, then at the others, noting their weapons and their size. "I suppose I am," he replied calmly. "Who's asking?" The warriors exchanged glances, surprised by his composure. They had expected panic, perhaps begging, but this human stood tall, his voice steady. The leader of the group stepped closer, towering over him. "We are the Xareeth, and you are nothing but a specimen," she said. "We've come to see if the tales of your resilience are true." He crossed his arms, his expression steady. "I don't know what you've heard, but if you're looking for trouble, you won't find it here." Her lips curled into a smirk. Bold words for someone so fragile. "Prove your worth, human. Show us if there is anything beneath your primitive shell." Instead of reacting with anger or fear, the man studied her, his gaze calm but sharp. "Prove it," he repeated. "And what would that accomplish? You've already made up your mind about me." This response unsettled her. She had expected defiance or submission, not this level of clarity. "Words are meaningless," she snapped. "You'll face a trial." The challenge was simple, a test of strength and wits. The warriors presented him with an impossible task, moving a massive boulder across the clearing. They watched with smug amusement as he sized up the challenge, clearly understanding the futility of brute force. To their surprise, he didn't hesitate. Instead of attempting to lift the boulder, he scouted the clearing, examining the terrain and gathering supplies. With ropes, logs, and leverage, he created a makeshift pulley system, using the forest itself to assist him. The warriors watched in silence as the boulder began to shift, inch by inch, until it finally rolled to the designated spot. The leader of the group stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "You use tools," she said flatly. He shrugged. "Strength isn't just about muscle. It's about solving problems." Another warrior, her voice softer, muttered. "He used his environment like a strategist." The leader's gaze hardened. "It proves nothing. This was but a game." She gestured to the others, who advanced with the intent to intimidate. "You cannot outthink what you cannot overpower." But again, the man surprised them. Instead of retreating, he stood his ground, speaking firmly. "You think strength is about domination," he said. But real strength is knowing when to fight and when to build. His words struck a chord. The warriors hesitated, their confidence shaken. For the first time, they saw something beyond the physical in this human, a strength rooted in resilience, wisdom, and heart. It was unlike anything they had encountered before. The air grew tense as a sudden commotion erupted from the village. Shouts echoed through the trees, followed by a faint rumble beneath their feet. The warriors and the man turned toward the sound, their instincts sharp. From the forest's edge came a landslide of debris, trees splintering under the weight of rock and soil. A section of the mountainside had given way, triggered by earlier rains, and now it hurtled toward the village. The man didn't hesitate. He sprinted toward the chaos, leaving the warriors momentarily stunned. "Is he fleeing?" one asked, but the leader narrowed her eyes.
"No.
He's heading toward danger." Reaching the village, the man began shouting orders. Villagers scrambled to follow his lead, grabbing what they could to create barriers and guide the flow of debris away from homes. He directed them with a precision and authority that belied his humble appearance. When a section of the village wall threatened to collapse, he threw himself into the effort, bracing it with a makeshift support until others arrived to reinforce it. The warriors arrived moments later, watching the scene unfold. The leader scowled.
"Foolish.
He risks his life for these weaklings." But one of the others, the quieter warrior, stepped forward. "They follow him," she observed. "He has no title, no rank, yet they obey without question." "Why?" The leader had no answer. The man's courage and resourcefulness were undeniable, but it was the loyalty of his people that gave them pause. These humans, fragile as they seemed, worked together with an intensity and determination the Xareeth rarely witnessed in their own rigid hierarchy. When a cry rang out, a child trapped beneath a fallen beam, the man rushed forward again. The beam was too heavy for him alone, and as he strained against it, the warriors saw the limit of his strength. For a moment, they watched, detached. Then, unexpectedly, the quiet warrior stepped forward and lifted the beam effortlessly, allowing the man to pull the child to safety. He looked up at her, sweat streaking his face. "Thanks," he said, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. She nodded, a flicker of respect in her eyes. As the chaos subsided and the village rallied, the man slumped against a wall, his breath coming in heavy bursts. The leader approached him, her expression unreadable. "You risked your life for them," she said. "Why?" He met her gaze, his tone calm. "Because that's what we do. We take care of each other. It's not about strength. It's about responsibility." Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't reply. Instead, she turned to her warriors, who seemed equally conflicted. This man, with his limited power, had accomplished what they could not. He had inspired loyalty, trust, and action through sheer determination. When they left the village, the leader lingered for a moment, watching the man as he helped rebuild alongside his people. She didn't speak, but something in her demeanor softened. As they ascended into the skies, the quiet warrior broke the silence. "Perhaps strength is not what we believed it to be," she said. The leader didn't respond, but her silence spoke volumes.